Hi, Slimane, and thanks for joining us on Cruxcast. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, it's no problem. We're glad to have you here. Slimane, you're the CEO and co-founder of Dockstr, which is an interesting company doing some really interesting work with some interesting ideas about how things can work. Can you tell us a bit about Dockstr and how that works?
Sure. So Dockstr is a young technology company. We're based out of Stockholm and London, and we are active in the area of procurement of services and products. We've got two legs of operation. One side is the online marketplace. You can think about it as eBay for the offshore and marine sectors. We're helping companies to procure and source equipment. We're bringing together buyers and sellers. We're trying to help the industry to be better at reusing, sharing equipment, and doing business online. The second area of operation we have is in procurement digital tools, where we're trying to help companies to collaborate better with their supply chain and to be better at monitoring the contracts they have. This is a new area for us, but we've been very active on that for the last 12 months, and we are very passionate about it. So you'll hear a bit more about it in coming months.
Very good. So going back, what was the driver for setting this up? What did you see that was that drove you to put this together?
For a number of years, I've been wanting to start a new venture in the space I know well, which is the offshore, marine, oil and gas industry. And in 2016, I had that opportunity. So I basically wanted to set up a company at the intersection of two worlds, which I'm quite passionate about. The one where I spent the last 20 years, which is the offshore world. I've been in engineering role, commercial role, middle management, top management. And the tech space, where Stockholm is a very vibrant place for technology, with a company like Skype, like Spotify and others, all coming from here. It's a bit of California in 1 or 2 square kilometers. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. It's amazing. So I thought building a company at the intersection of these two worlds where I'm kind of living will be interesting. So I've gathered a group of people late 16 and early 17 and say, what can we do? And we thought that we should help the transaction to be more effective. We saw that it was very cumbersome to buy and sell equipment. So on one hand, you had tons of companies sitting with large inventory of equipment being not used or underused. On the other hand, you had people building new stuff 1 kilometer away, which didn't know that what they are building and take 12 months were readily available and they could get it tomorrow for a fraction of the cost. So that was the start of building Dockstr in early 2017, basically.
Okay, and your concepts and your practices seem to harmonize very well with the, I don't want to say trendy, but the new buzzwords that are going around, like the circular economy and sustainability. I guess that's something that you wanted to tap into.
Yeah, so reusing things is something which is becoming more mainstream. And I started to look at it in more detail, and it's very fascinating. We are 7 billion people on this planet. In 20 years, we'll be 9 billion. So the growth is quite amazing. We're adding 1 Germany every year. But what's amazing is that we are moving from 2 billion of middle-class people consuming a lot of stuff to 5 billion. So every 2 years, we're adding the equivalent of the US in terms of consumption, which means that if we see how we are consuming in this world, it's clearly not sustainable. And I look at some numbers. Every year in Europe, we're buying 35 million mattresses. I mean, we can't keep going like that. So a lot of companies, and I see that in Stockholm, a lot of companies are doing that in the B2C space, trying to say, how can we change that model? Moving from a linear model where we kind of get the resource, transform them, and provide them to the end user, to a system where you kind of reuse all the time. Instead of recycling, you just find new ways of doing things. So I think this is going to become more mainstream because we are going to lack more and more resources. And it has to impact the industry. So I'm very proud of Dockstr, where we are enabling, for instance, instead of buying a new engine, a company is to use an engine which is just available. So we had a transaction, for instance, last year between Namibia and Nigeria, a company was in dry dock. They needed an engine. They were looking for what was available around, not because they wanted to use second-hand, but it was impossible for them to get something new. Okay. And that's the way they found an equipment through our platform. So circular economy, I think, will become more important, and even industry like ours will continue and develop that more and more in the future.
Now, your focus right now is on marine and offshore. Do you see that idea of circular economy being an easy adoption for the traditional players, or does it take a new mindset?
So obviously, when we set up Dockstr, we've looked at what exists, and in traditional, like if you go onshore, in agricultural, in construction, you have more reuse of equipment. We are very passionate about the offshore and marine world, and I think it takes quite some understanding to be able to impact this industry. It's not easy to walk in the office of large oil service company or offshore players. So we took that as our playground, and we said, let's try to drive change in these industries. And it's happening. I mean, if I take the oil segment, for instance, we don't have fields which are 25 years of life any longer. Field life is an average 2 to 10 years. Why should we build something for 30 years when the field is going to produce for 3 or 4 years? We should think in terms of brick and Lego mentality, where you build something for 3 or 4 years, you move it to another place, and you reuse it for the next project. That's the only way these things are going to be economic. So what we built the platform to allow that, and we got amazing engineers who are capable of looking at what's existing and transform the existing instead of always starting from scratch. So these are interesting concepts and are getting applied. We've seen example of platform being used in one part of the world, in Gulf of Mexico, moving to North Africa and being transformed. We've seen drill pipe used as line pipe. We've seen module getting used for the project. But it's not only that, it's about, I think what's even more mainstream is just sharing. We should move from a CapEx mentality to an OpEx mentality. What can I basically use or borrow for only a period of time, and when my project or my application is finished, can move to the next one. And finally, I think the move from offline to online, obviously we can do more with online tools than we see today with what's going on.
Yeah, very, very interesting, and interesting to see what kind of transactions you're already seeing in that space. You mentioned that you're based in Stockholm, and why that's a really cool and interesting place to be. You mentioned it being like a mini part of California in terms of tech. How does that work?
So Stockholm and Sweden is an interesting place. It's a small country. We're only 10 million here. It's often seen as a laboratory for experiment, because Swedes are very keen in technology, so they are early adopters. So a lot of tech company tends to use Stockholm as a test market, and as a result, we see a lot of technology being implemented. For instance, we barely use cash in Sweden. I think it's one of the first countries in the world which is not using cash. And then there've been some very successful companies like Skype, Spotify, Minecraft, or Kings, which is behind Mojang, which is behind that. And all these companies have done very well. It has created money. It has created great entrepreneur, which means now there's a second wave of companies which are coming with the money, the talent, and the support which exists based on this first round of success. So today, Stockholm and Sweden is actually has the highest concentration of tech company per inhabitant in the world after California. And the support that which is around is amazing. You can kind of call anyone and you get that support. I really enjoy that.
Very good. You mentioned that clearly you've got a strong background in marine and offshore at various levels in organizations, and you've mentioned that that is your focus for now, but clearly the Dockstr concept and the circular economy concept can be applied to any industry, really, any heavy industry or any light industry. So
it is indeed can be applied to many industries. I think with the world of offshore and marine, I think it's about $1 trillion. It's massive. If we think about oil and gas, we think of offshore renewable, marine, fishing industry, oceanography, and so on. and these are all specialist industry. I think at Dockstr, we see that being the industry where we want to have the most impact. So we are developing adjacent offering to our marketplace in the procurement tool area. And there's other startups which are doing things in agricultural or mining and so on. But I think, you know, like I know, each industry takes quite some time to understand. It's pretty complex stuff, the way you are operating. And if you are not capable of understanding the terminology, the context of all that, I think it's hard to collaborate with these companies.
So do you see it as the discussions that you have with your client base, is it, I guess there's probably excitement around it because people will see that there's efficiency to be had. People will see that there's a sustainability angle to be had. But is it an easy thing for these companies to change over to get away from that mentality of what they used to do to this new modern way of working? Is it a simple internal process for them, or do you see it as more difficult?
Well, I think I'm probably going to give you a different answer than if you had asked me that question 2 months ago.
Okay.
We are going through a very interesting period, if I can use that word. I think the world we live in at the moment is very different from 2 months ago. We've got about 3 billion people sitting at home like you and I today.
Yep.
And I think crisis are actually a trigger of change. We've seen amazing companies which were created when they were on the verge of bankruptcy. So when you're going through a crisis, you have to think harder. You have to change things the way you are doing it. And I think just now we're getting forced to change the way we are doing business because we are working from home. We cannot travel. So the adoption of certain things are becoming accelerating at speed of light. And what's, for instance, visiting your doctor online was things which were starting to happen in Stockholm and probably in UK as well. Now it's becoming, it's mainstream. That's the main way you talk to your doctor. And that will be very sticky, I think, in the coming months. In the same way, I think the way we do business, when you can't travel, can't go to the conference, I think you have to use online tool. At Dockstr, we are trying to be providing this platform to connect with the buyers and connect buyers and sellers. And we are trying to see how we can help business to be more efficient with online solutions, partly in the procurement area. Just now, companies are going to be focused on restructuring, reorganizing to face this new reality. And I think a lot of non-essential tasks are going to be pushed or cancelled. I spend my time talking to procurement professionals, and quite large of them have quite large number of a lot of stuff on their agenda. Digitalization is important, but it's not certain they will be able to push it. So I don't know. It'll be interesting the next 6 to 12 months to see which company will invest in digitalization and which one are too busy with just taking care of normal business to do anything.
Indeed. The pandemic, as you mentioned, has caused us all to think differently in the last 2 or 3 months. What are you thinking about in terms of maybe even with Dockstr or other opportunities to help this collaboration and share and try and make things more efficient? I know that you're always thinking about the next stages. Is there anything else on your sort of thought horizon right now that could help as we move forward?
So we're putting a number of initiatives at the moment. We want to bring buyers and sellers of procurement and services even more together. And for that, we are doing simple things. We are launching a series of webinar on specific subjects. So in the next few days, we'll have one on fuel efficiency and emission reductions. Our platform is an online platform. So the way to do business, mainstream at the moment, is online.
Yes.
So for people who want to sell their services, for people who want to source their services, they have to connect. An online platform like Dockstr can enable that. We've been doing a lot of experimentation in the last 3 or 4 years. We know what works and we know what does not work. So we are helping companies to develop their online offering. And finally, we're also working in the procurement on more complex projects with more complex contracts to help this company to work more efficiently with their contractors. So it's an interesting time. The way we are working today is evolving very fast. I think it's fascinating to see government and companies making decisions in a matter of hours, which would have taken months or years.
Yeah.
You see change of policies, which would have taken years to go on discussion and happening in a matter of hours. So I think there'll be certain things which are going to stick. I think we are moving faster to have this kind of duality, offline, online, come more work together. And I think it's natural that companies like us support people who are more in the offline world to be more efficient in the online world. I've been in that journey in the last 3 or 4 years. It's quite complicated, and much more complicated than I thought. And we'll be very happy to help companies to do that as well.
Very good. You mentioned some positives about maybe government and industry making decisions quicker. If anything, if there is any positive to take away from all of this, once we start to come out and start to recover, what other positives do you see coming from this on the commercial side?
I think we didn't talk so much about environment in past 15 minutes, but we all saw the objective of going from a carbonized to a decarbonized world and trying to reduce our emissions and all the rest. And in the current time, I think we're doing pretty well in the last months. We're not, and I think maybe we can look back at that period and think, okay, what has worked? What is difficult? What is cumbersome? And what was actually better in that world? There's certain things which are better today than they were a month ago. And it'd be nice to kind of, we've done a worldwide scale experiment. What portion of that can we apply to business going forward? Is it the fact of being 5 days in the office altogether a good model, or can we reinvent ourselves and say we spend only 50% of our time in the office, traveling less, using other way of working? I think I'm quite excited to see. I think younger generation ask for that sometime, and I think the older generation sometimes feel no, I want everybody from 7 to 8 in the office and want to be all together, and they hate it. And I'm hoping that we'll see certain of these things changing, and people been forced to use this technology because they are stuck at home, to see that actually there's some merit to that. And it's maybe a more balanced world. And so I think the jury is still out, but we are doing a worldwide scale experiment at the moment, which will have some impact. We are also going through a big crisis, which will have an impact. And I think the way the world changes at a faster pace is when we go through that type of unsettling situation. So the world we are living in will be different in 6 months, for sure.
Indeed. So we touched on efficiencies in procurement, circular economy, environmental advantages, cost advantages. It's been great to talk to you. How can people get in touch with you, Slimane?
Well, we're online.
Yep, not a shock.
So you just go to dockstr.com, dockstr.com, and there's a chat at the bottom. You can send in a note, and we respond within a few minutes. Or you can use my email, slimane@dockstr.com. People struggle with our name, Dockstr. And it's very interesting. I saw many, partly in Stockholm, with the young startup having very strange name. Yep. And I was wondering, why all these strange names? Why I can't even spell it out? And the reason is that I never realized there's like more than a 2 or 3 billion websites in the world. 250 million are active websites. And actually finding a .com website is very, very difficult. So all the young company wants to find a name. If you are looking for something that less than 20 letters, which costs less than $10,000, it's impossible. And that's the reason you got all this interesting name. And usually the younger company have all this strange name without vowel that you cannot pronounce, or with typo or thing like that. And you wonder why. Well, at least you'll have learned that if you listen to this podcast until the end. That's why we are called Dockstr, and there's no E at the end. With the E, it would have cost us $4,000.
So you dropped the E.
The decision was easy.
Yeah, exactly. And these webinars, can people get in touch about attending these webinars through your website?
Yeah, so we will be starting to advertise very shortly. The first one, which is coming up, will be with Bureau Veritas, Daman, Varsila, and Sintef. So probably 4 big companies who are doing a lot of great stuff on fuel efficiency. So I'm very happy that they're all joining us. And so we'll be posting that on our website and on our social media. So you'll be hearing about it very shortly.
Slimane, it's been a pleasure. We wish you all the best with Dockstr and hope to see you soon.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.